Hi guys, today I'm going to tell you about the real size of countries. First, let's start with, Canada, which looks really big on the top. But in reality, when you reach it to the United States, you could just see that it's a little bit bigger. Moving it down to Mexico, it's the same thing. Moving it to Brazil is actually way smaller than the other Canada we see on the map. See how the size changes? Moving it to Africa only covers the Sahara Desert. Moving it to Russia it still looks really big. But in reality, moving it to China only looks that big. And for another example, here is the United States. United States, moving it to Africa, you could just see it only covers that much. Moving it to Brazil, you could see that it actually kind of looks smaller. And when you move it to Mexico, you could just see how small it is. Moving it to Russia, though, it looks gargantuan. But moving it to China, it's actually smaller. Speaking of China, we're going to use it for an example. It looks really big over here, but when you move it to Australia, it's only roughly the same size. Moving it to Africa, you could just see that it's the same thing as Canada and United States. Moving it to the United States, you could just see it's only about the same size. Moving it to Mexico, you could see that it's only a little bigger. Moving it to Brazil, you could see that they're about the same size. Moving it to Europe, though, you could just see it's really big, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to the Atlantic Ocean to Russia and to Tunisia, Spain, Portugal, and even more, stretching all the way to Turkey as well. But the same thing for Russia, which looks absolutely massive up there. But moving it to China, you could just see how small it is. Moving it to Australia, the same thing, only a little bigger. Moving it to Africa, you could just see how small Russia actually is. Moving it to Brazil, you could see that actually it's only a little bigger. Same thing for the United States. Same for Canada. Well, moving it up to Greenland, it looks gargantuan. Falling to the United States, Canada, the Northern Islands of Canada, Greenland, and goes all the way up out of this map, goes to Russia itself, goes to France, Germany, and even the Ukraine and Poland, and Belarus. Same thing for Greenland. If you see Greenland, for instance, it just reaches all the way to the equator, and you could just see how small it is compared to Brazil. Up here, it looks way bigger than Canada, United States, and Brazil, and Russia, but actually, bring it down to Brazil, you could just see how small it is. Same for Canada, United States, Mexico, China, and Russia. United Kingdom looks pretty big, and it looks actually bigger than New Zealand, but reach it down all the way here, you could actually see that's much smaller than New Zealand. Moving over to Australia, you could just see how small United Kingdom is. Moving it to Papua New Guinea, yeah, it's only about the same size. Even Sweden looks large up here, but in reality, you could just see how big Sweden is compared to Africa. And let's see the real Sweden compared to this Sweden. Look, it's much smaller. Moving it to Canada, you could actually see that it's only that big. Same for United States, China, Russia, Africa, oh, we just said that. Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico, Atlantic Ocean, Greenland, Iceland. Well, Iceland's a little smaller. And compare it to India, Australia, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Norway also looks gargantuan up there. But in reality, when you move it down to Africa, you could see that it's not the one we used to know. See? Let's compare the Norway we see on the map with the actual Norway. See that? Move it to Canada, you could just see that's way smaller. Same for United States, Mexico, China, Russia, and Africa. Well, we just said that. Why do I keep saying Africa? Brazil, Australia, and Argentina. You could just see Norway is pretty small. Same for Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country in the world. Looks pretty big, but when you move it to Russia, you could actually see that's a little bigger. When we move it to China, it actually seems smaller. Move it to the equator, you could see that's only about the same size as Indonesia. Moving it to Japan, it's actually pretty big, but it's not the one we see on the map. Same for when you reach it to Thailand, India, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, the Arabic family, Africa, Europe, and more. Speaking of Europe, Europe's countries looks pretty big. For example, France looks really big over here, but in reality, move it to Brazil, you could actually see that is the real size of France. Moving it all the way to Sudan, you could see that's way smaller. Same for Chad, Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Western Sahara, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, United States, Canada, Kazakhstan, China, and Russia. As you can see, for Poland also looks pretty big. But when you move it to Algeria, it's way smaller than the one we see on the map. See? Move it to Spain, you could just see it's way smaller. To Mauritania and Mali and Niger, it's pretty small. Same for Nigeria. And exactly when you move it to the equator, you could actually see it's about the same size as Gabon. That is pretty small. Same for Finland. You could see Finland is a really big country up there. But actually, in reality, this is how it looks like compared to Algeria, United States, Canada, Mexico. And also, compared to New Zealand, you could actually see it's only about the same size. Speaking of New Zealand is actually pretty big. It looks small down here, but compared to Australia, it looks like this. Compared to Papua New Guinea, it's actually bigger. Compared to Indonesia, though, but compared to Thailand, it's absolutely big and huge. Compared to China and Mongolia, wow, it's right. And this is it compared to Russia. Alaska, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. That is how big New Zealand is. Ireland looks pretty small, but actually when you reach it all the way to Greenland, you could just see how big it is. Moving it to Iceland, it's only about the same size though. And moving it down to the equator, you could just see how small it is. Smaller than Gabon, Republic of the Congo, Cameroon, Nigeria, Benin, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Mali, Mauritania, Algeria, Libya, Chad, Niger, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, Somaliland, and Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Yeah, that is how small or big these guys are. Oh yeah, we forgot to talk about Japan. Japan is absolutely really big. You might not see it on this map, but in reality, if you place it in the mainland United States, you could see stretches from Maine all the way to Cuba, into the Gulf of Mexico, stretching all the way to South Carolina, and that's not even the length of it. Same for Indonesia, absolutely super big. It might not look like it on the map, but compared to China, you could see that's way longer. Compared to Mongolia and Russia, you could just see how big it is. Compared to, well, United States, that is how it stretches from east to west coast. Same for Canada, Africa, and Europe. This makes Indonesia longer than one whole continent. That is gigantic. Well, 2 continents already. Some other countries are bigger than you expect. Pakistan, for example, might not look big on the map, but example, compared to Russia, you could just see how big it is. Compared to Greenland, it looks absolutely gargantuan. Same for Canada, United States, but snuggly in Mexico. Quite snuggly in Chad, though. Australia, but still, Pakistan is a gigantic country. And you might not think Iran is a big country, but it is. Compared to mainland United States, it looks like that. Compared to Canada, it looks like that. Greenland, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Europe, and so you can see Iran is way bigger than Iceland. And Iceland is not the real island we see on the map. If you compare it to Europe, it actually doesn't look like the same Iceland we see on the map. Let's do Iceland for comparison. It's way smaller. When we compare it to DRC, it actually looks way smaller, but on the map, it looks like about the same size as Chad. But in reality, this is how big it is compared to Chad. In the equator, it could actually fit in the Gulf of Guinea, I mean. And speaking of Guinea, Iceland is actually smaller than Guinea, but not on the map. On the map it says it's way bigger, but in reality Iceland is way smaller than it used to be. And that is enough of talk. Wait a second, let's try Mexico. We didn't try Mexico, but we talked about it. Compared to the United States, it actually looks pretty big, but in reality it looks like in the equator it's only about this big. But still, it's gargantuan compared to Peru. It stretches from Bolivia all the way to the middle east of Peru. Stretching it to Brazil, you can see that's almost as long. And when you put it on the most western coast of Brazil, you could see that it stretches all the way to Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana, and even the Atlantic Ocean. That is how big Mexico is. And that's enough talking for today. I hope you like this video, and please like and subscribe.